Jews have lost sight of Yahweh's point of view. Christians, I don't think ever really had Yahweh's point of view because it got corrupted so early on. Okay? But Yahweh's point of view, and not from the children of men. Who were the children of men? Who were the daughters of men that seduced the sons of Elohim? We go back to Bereshit to understand who were the daughters of men who seduced the sons of Elohim to adultery. We go into the book of Numbers. Why did Balaam tell Balak to send in the Midianite women? To confuse the Israelites into false worship and bring them away. So we have an idea of what the children of men do. Those who worship in truth and in spirit are a non-people. They are not Christian. They are not Jew. They are a non-people. A vile nation in the eyes of Yahweh is one who worships in falsehood, calling evil good and good evil. Everybody with me on that? Everybody understand that part? Maybe? Oh, it's a good thing there'll be a handout next week. I'll put all, I've got it in scratches and pieces of paper. I just wanted to do it this way for today just to kind of get a feel for things. So, the children of men. He has set borders, he has set the borders of the people according to the number of the children of Israel. He has set the borders according to Bnei Israel. He has set the borders according to those who have established that Yahweh Elohim prevails in their lives. Now, this next verse would kind of throw you. It's kind of a confusing verse. For the portion of Yahweh is his people, Jacob, the lot of his inheritance. We read that and we say, okay, well, you know, Jacob, the father of the 12 tribes, it's all that good. Jacob means supplanter. Jacob means that you have taken something that doesn't belong there and put it there. So why would Jacob receive the lot of his inheritance? Let's consider, while we consider that one, let's look at the blessings that Jacob here gets. Okay, Jacob the supplanter. He found him in the desert land and in the waste, a howling wilderness. He compassed him about. He cared for him. He kept him as the apple of his eye. This sounds pretty good. I want to be Jacob. As an eagle that stirs up her nest, hovers over her young, spreads abroad her wings, takes them, bears them on her pinions. Yahweh alone did lead him, and there was no strange deity with him. There was no strange deity with this Jacob fella. That means supplanter. And then Yahweh's doing all this really great stuff for this guy that means to supplant, to put something there that doesn't belong there. He made him to ride on the high places of the earth, and he did eat the fruitage of the fields, and made him to suck honey out of the crag, and oil out of the flinty rock, curd of oxen, and milk of sheep, with the fat of lambs, and the rams of the breed of Bashan. I guess Basham's like a really good goat, you know, I guess you might get that at Central Market or something. And he-goats with the kidney fat of wheat, and the blood of the grape you drank in foaming wine. This is, I mean, it's just been squished out fresh. It is still foaming. These are some benefits that come to a guy that's called Jacob, that means supplanter. But let's read on here. And Jeshurun grew fat. Jeshurun is a name that means upright one. Someone who is upright. Someone who's righteous. But let's read about this righteous guy. You know, we've read about the good things that are happening to this supplanter guy. The righteous guy grew fat and kicked. You did grow fat, and you grew thick, and you became gross, and he forsook Eloha. That's interesting. It's an Aramaic term. Who made him and fell away from the rock of his deliverance. This upright guy started to kick against the instructions, started to grow fat and thick and get comfortable. and he fell away from the rock of his deliverance. They roused him to jealousy with strange deities. With abominations did they provoke him. Okay, this is all this Jezreel guys bringing in these strange deities and abominations to provoke Elohim. They sacrificed to demons and non-deities, deities that they did not know. New deities that came up of late, which your fathers dreaded not. This would open a huge, huge can of worms. And we've opened this can of worms before. Worship the Lord God. The word Lord comes to us from a Roman deity of fertility, a household deity, a pagan deity of fertility. The word God comes to us from the Teutonic, which became the Norse deity Godin, who was the deity of the heavens. We believe in Jesus that's formed from Eos, that is a deity, a female deity of fertility, also known as Ishtar, and from Zeus, which is the Greek deity or Roman deity of the heavens. We call him Eozus. They sacrificed unto demons, non-deities, deities they knew not, new deities that came up of late, which your fathers dreaded not. They didn't even know them. They understood Yahweh Elohim. They understood that even within Torah, in fact, this word deliverance here, up in verse 15, the root of that word is Yahshua. They even understood Yahshua in Torah. These are the things they understood. Yahshua told the Samaritan woman who said, "We've worshipped this way for 1,000 years." He said, "You don't understand what you worship." So we see this in this song that Moses is singing, a prophetic song that's going to tell us what's going to happen in the future. But teshuvah is going to have to be made. Of the rock that begot you, you were unmindful and did forget El that bore you. It's the rejection of the Torah and the rejection of Yahweh. The Jews, in a sense, rejected the name of Yahweh when they said, you can't even pronounce it anymore, around the 2nd century CE. The Christians said, we reject the Torah because it's all that Jewish stuff. We have the New Testament now, without understanding that they are responsible for keeping the instruction of Yahweh Elohim. So we see something happening with Jeshurun, the one that's righteous, the one that's upright. And Yahweh saw and spurned because of his provoking of his sons and his daughters. Okay? Let's take a look at this right quick. What is going on between Jacob and Jeshurun? Jacob, what we see here in verses 7 through 14, that it's a pure state of being. It's dependent on Yahweh and the rewards that come from it. What we see here is that we have to make teshuvah. We can be wicked, but we can make teshuvah and receive the benefits that come from Yahweh Elohim. What we see over here in Jeshurun, that means upright, righteous, is an unclean state of being, dependent on self and falsehoods, and this is the rewards and the rewards of disobedience that come from it. That without teshuvah, we can be blinded into thinking that we are righteous, but if we refuse to make teshuvah, then what happens? We're going to die in that blindness. What we're seeing here is that the wicked will make teshuvah in the name of Yahshua and will receive the benefits of Yahweh Elohim, and that the upright who think that they're all that in a bag of potato chips aren't going to make teshuvah because they are totally and completely convinced that they are right. There's nothing wrong with their way of worship. They've worshipped this way for 1,700 years. This is what my grandmother taught me and my grandmother, my grandfather, my great uncle Stan, who was a saint, taught me this. I actually had an Uncle Stan. He was a really nice guy.
Cool.
But what I'm getting at is there's a sense of blindness. Narrow is the door, and very few are those that find it. You have to want to seek Elohim in spirit and in truth. And you have to want to make teshuvah in order to turn around. So we go on, and he says, and he said, this is Yahweh who says this, I will hide my face from them. I will see what their end shall be, for they are a very perverse generation, children in whom there is no faithfulness. And we read in 2 Timothy kind of an idea of what this generation is. We're not going to go through the entire 32nd chapter, so nobody freak out. We'll finish it next week. It's like, oh my gosh, there's 53 verses. So, but listen to what Paul tells Timothy. And he's actually repeating Joshua. Joshua said the same thing, not so many eloquent words. You know, Paul's their rabbi. They like to talk a lot, I guess. I don't know any rabbis, so. But know this, that in the latter days hard times will come, and men will be lovers of themselves and lovers of money, boasters, proud, revilers, unyielding toward their own people, deniers of grace, wicked, unloving, addicted to irreconcilable, malicious gossips, whatever in the world that means, ferocious, haters of the good, treacherous, rash, inflated, attached to pleasures more than to the love of Elohim, having a form of respect of Elohim, but neglecting the power that comes from Elohim. He says, to these people, stay away from these kind of people. So they have roused me to jealousy, he says. He says, I will hide my face from these kind of people. We consider this, then we have to consider verse 28 and 29 of Devarim 32. You see how it's kind of pushing its way in waves as we move forward. But 28 and 29, for they are a nation void of counsel, and there is no understanding in them. If they were wise, they would understand this, and they would discern it for their latter end. For their end days, they would come to the realization that this is the state they're in. But they believe themselves to be Jezreel. They believe themselves to be upright. I am not Jacob. I am not a supplanter. I really am all that and a bag of potato chips. We also see some more about them in 31, 32, and 33 that says, for their rock is not as our rock, even our enemies themselves being judges. Check this out, 32. For their vine is of the vine of Sodom and the fields of Gomorrah, and their grapes are grapes of gall, their clusters are bitter, their wine is the venom of serpents, and the cruel poison of asps. So what is the venom of serpents? Go to verse 24. That says, the wasting of hunger and the devouring of the fiery bolt, the bitter destruction, the teeth of beasts. That should ring a bell in people's minds if we understand the Hebrew letters. Will I send upon them with the venom of crawling things of the dust. First of all, the teeth of the beasts. The teeth. If we look over here in the Hebrew, we're going to see 1, 2, 3, third line down. After the samek in parentheses, it says Veshen bechamot. Veshen bechamot. What word do you see there that kind of jumps out at you? The word shin, tooth. What is shin? It gives us a choice to see things from Elohim's point of view or from our carnal point of view. This is the shin of Behemot. Behemot, the Behemah, is a representation in Torah of something that is dumb, cannot speak, cannot hear clearly the voice of Elohim, that is carried on four legs. It's carried on its spiritual poverty. So what are we saying? That we're looking at are these people, these Jesrun, that are righteous, see things from the point of view of spiritual poverty, because they worship what they don't understand. And then the poison, the venom of crawling things, the poison of serpents, the poison of the carnal mentality that comes from the deception of the Satan. We have a picture of the tet in both of these, that we don't make the choice to bow before our Elohim, that instead we make the choice to follow the Satan and crawl on our bellies, and that these things of the dust is always going to be a representation of something that is dead. He formed man out of the dust, but he breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, that only through Elohim can something that is dead become alive. So, what are we starting to see here? We're seeing a song that's sung. What do we have to understand in order to understand this song? What do we have to know if we're going to understand this song? We have to understand the Torah. We have to understand the prophets. We have to understand Brit Hadashah. This is a prophetic song that is teaching us what they're fixing to walk into, what's fixing to happen. It's a prophetic song that we sing. This song, this Torah portion, is so important. It's called Ha'azinu. Ha'azinu, that means give ear, pay attention. And we sing this song when? Right before Sukkot. This is the last Torah portion that we will read before, well, it's the next to the last Torah portion that we will read before we turn back. We'll have our Torah portion next Saturday, or next Friday, and then we read the last of Devarim, and then we go back to the beginning. How can we go back to the beginning if we don't understand what we have to do and what condition we have to be in order to get back to the beginning? This is just something that is so terribly important. When you read in Revelation that it says they were singing a song and nobody could understand it. Joshua says, few are those that find the way, because it's narrow. Very few people learn the song and understand it. But then, here we contrast verse 9 and 15, this Jacob and Jeshurun. We consider that the wicked can make teshuvah, and that they can begin to walk with Yahuwah, while the upright, those righteous people, fail to do so because they're in a false sense of righteousness, and they succumb to this false deity and the doctrine that comes from it. That the righteous don't want to leave what they're doing because they've been totally and completely blindsided. But it's the ones who see that something has supplanted the truth of Elohim that are going to do what they can to change it. But what are those people that are called? What are those people called who begin to bring up the truth to these Jesrun? What are they called? They're still called Jacob, because you're trying to change things, and turning back to Torah is a very difficult thing, because you're going against 2,000 years of something that came from Pluto. But anyway, this is, I think, a point that we can stop